But before that, amazing keynotes are ahead of us. So I would like again to thank our panelists for having such a great discussion today. It's always exciting to hear about the next chapters that this industry is going to write and what's next for business services in our region and our country. BSS is developing rapidly, as well as Bosnia and Herzegovina together with it. But did you think approximately 5 years ago that this country would successfully develop projects and work on adoption of artificial intelligence? Well, I wouldn't, but it's true. Our next speaker went from a denoted Olympian through MIT to the world of sophisticated software solutions and artificial intelligence. Live from the United States, as you had the previous opportunity to see, our next keynote speaker is Mr. Ned Lomigora. Ned, can you hear us?
Hi, I can hear you. Thank
Welcome
you.
Again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You may start. Welcome yet again to the annual conference in Sarajevo. Hope to see you next year here on stage.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm really honored, first of all, that I'm given this opportunity. I will have a short presentation, and hopefully we can have a follow-up conversation after that. Let me just quickly do a sharing part. Okay. Does everyone see my screen and my slides? So I will talk briefly, only 20-minute keynote, but I will talk about the impact that artificial intelligence and fields like artificial intelligence and machine learning will have on the IT services and IT services businesses in the region, in the Western Balkans region. I'd like to start with this slide because it's really inspiring. Sundar is the highest paid CEO in the world and comes from humble beginnings, and he is one of the top leaders currently in the world. And so, you know, he's really saying something that I profoundly believe in, that AI is going to be, you know, the next revolution, technological revolution, but also it is a profound invention that we are still actually in process of inventing. A brief sort of introduction to my company. I started 387 Labs this year because I wanted to really first help solve some of the problems that we have in the country, such as brain drain, to help younger generations stay and work in the country, turned from a outsourcing development model into a product-centric model, and 387 Labs is exactly that. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but it is a really completely new structure and organization in the sense that it works with both public and private sector, local and foreign entities, and it offers many modes of operation and modalities to in which we perform our business, which is from building services, AI-based services, products, to building startups that come out of our company through an accelerator, as well as training that we strongly believe in will accelerate adoption of AI. So if any of you want to talk to me about this, I can go into detail. The key to our, one of the key factors in our company is that we bring foreign experts from the United States, mainly in machine learning and AI, people from top companies in the world that actually are experts that train and help our teams both in real projects, building products, but also during training programs that we offer. I just want to emphasize how important it is to have an expert on the team, and we should embrace anybody with expertise and bring them into our environment, because it will accelerate our development. I just want to run through quickly to this list. In a way, you know, today there's a lot of talk about, what employees and employers, what that relationship is and what the relationship should be. We believe in completely, transparent and inclusive environment. We also offer, I believe, structure to our people that work for the company and in the company that is unmatched. And these are some of the things that we offer. One of the things that we really emphasize the autonomy that people that work through 387 Labs can do either project work, they can do develop IP, they can work on training, they can start their own company with our help, and there's many modalities in which they can actually participate. I just want to talk about people in general and a culture that I believe strongly that the best culture is built by really meaningful engagement with employees, and this is what we strive to do through our company. The next thing is, let's talk about the landscape itself. The landscape, I believe, this is sort of like a very general high-level view, but what I think will happen in next few years, especially, is that currently we have very large companies, IT service companies, that we start to see a lot of people sort of starting their own companies and leaving and sort of doing work on their own. What we will see in the next few years is that larger companies will sort of shrink in size. And then we will see other smaller companies that are starting right now grow in size in actually a very fast pace. So I see this trend continuing. We're going to see a lot more smaller companies growing a lot faster, and these larger companies that reach a certain size will kind of slow or maybe even decrease their growth or maybe break off in some way. And I also see in the near future, maybe 5 years down the road, we will start to see some unicorns in the region, more than one. This is my prediction for the kind of next 2 years. I see a huge movement among software engineers and in terms of how employee and employees are relating to each other. So I'm predicting that there will be alliance of software engineers formed in Bosnia within the next 2 years, similar to what we have today through entities like BiT Alliance. There will be a lot more companies with 2 to 10 employees formed within the next couple of years. This trend will just accelerate, not slow down. I also see that top IT service companies will be increasingly adopting software as a service business model, and sort of to augment their current sort of straight outsourcing, team augmentation, custom product development, project-based model. We will see also foreign domestic venture capital, and I mean really like venture capital firms, both foreign and domestic, that will be formed in this period of time, start to infuse some real capital in small and medium-sized enterprises. And last but not the least is that I see AI machine learning becoming a top strategic goal for most companies in the region. And how confident I am about these predictions, I'm literally like this guy, Steph Curry, if you watch basketball, turning away before the shot is even made to point to a fan. That is the confidence that I have in these predictions. And they're based on a lot of trends and facts that already are happening. It's not something new probably for a lot of people, but it is almost certain to happen. I believe the most important thing in the region is now to realize that the paradigm has changed in terms of how employees and employers relate to each other. I think it's very important to recognize that, and the companies that really understand the best way to attract and retain employees, top employees, will benefit and will prosper. Those that continue to go in the wrong direction in terms of how they do their recruitment, how they do their retention policies, I think they will be left behind. I think the prevailing business model today for IT services looks something like this. We have we have a really top-heavy custom software development model where most companies are really doing a lot of custom software development. Most of the cash flow is coming from there. And then we have some other services that are associated with that through, design and project management. And those are sort of add-on services that we are sort of developing. We are not that strong in them, but they kind of come naturally along with the pure custom software development. Then some companies are starting to sort of dabble in SaaS or software as a service offerings, and very few, if any, companies, that's why the question mark here, are starting to really explore AI services. And unfortunately, those that start to explore sort of don't know how to do it, or don't really have a vision of where they can apply that. And there's a lack of, obviously, trained people as well, which is also stopping that growth or stopping that initiative. But I think that's going to change very quickly within the next, say, 3 to 5 years. I see this sort of format, or this sort of model happening, where at the top of this pyramid, we're going to see much more SaaS services mixed with custom development. I think that's going to become really the most essential in terms of offering. In terms of AI, machine learning, I think they will come up really close to the top, and they will be very, very prominent, because within 3 to 5 years, most companies that will succeed and continue to be leaders will realize that they have to adapt this approach. They have to develop their AI machine learning skills, and that's why this offering will become very important. The industry itself is growing at such a pace that we're talking about trillions of dollars in the industry, and we have a huge shortage of qualified engineers in the field, and huge demand for these services. So it's really just going to happen very quickly before we even know it. I believe this 3 to 5 years probably on the long end. I think maybe within 2 to 4 years, this particular trend will happen. Why is machine learning very important? Why is AI right now in its stage that it is, which is very high demand, very low supply of qualified workers? And one of the reasons is that we have a lot of failure currently in the models that are created, predictive models, machine learning models. And that failure rate is actually slowing down the progress, is slowing down the adoption. Lots of money has been invested, but a lot more money will be invested. However, there is a solution to that. The solution to that is to develop really strong machine learning operations capabilities, or MLOps. MLOps is really a key to continuation of adoption of AI technology. In the short, MLOps is something like DevOps, but much, much harder. Just to illustrate how difficult this field is, this is a sort of a snapshot of a typical cycle that a model, once created, once trained, has to go through to actually even get into production in front of people or in front of other users to even be useful. And this is just high level of that model. So it's a very complicated. It comprises 90% of the entire success of the entire life cycle of the model. So the training part, development part is about 5-10%, and then the 90% of that is this MLOps, which is all about data. If you can see the top of these top of the process, it's really just all about data, from data, how you collect data, to how you actually pull that data into sort of a data lake, and how you actually later segment, label data, how you validate that data is correct, how you manage the distribution of data over time that fluctuates, etc. This is immensely complicated and challenging work, but really necessary to move things forward. In short, MLOps could be summarized in sort of these 4 quadrants. 25% is really knowing and working with data. DevOps is another 25%, and then the models and business domain knowledge is another 25%. So it's really important that this is sort of like understood, and importance of MLOps is understood. One of the last slides, I have a question I will answer that somebody is asking, but I will answer that as soon as I finish this presentation. I'm getting chat with some questions. This is, I'm sorry. This is a graph that sort of illustrates the disparity between the demand for MLOps today. Again, I'm saying that MLOps, why am I stressing MLOps and why not just AI? Because you can't do AI without strong MLOps. It's 90% of success for any AI project. So that's why I think this is going to be the key. This is why technologies in MLOps space have to be developed, platforms and solutions have to be developed. But current situation is sort of like a relative graph that where ML skills are really growing slowly, and sending slowly up. The demand for these MLOps skills is growing in leaps and bounds, and it's going to be very difficult to catch up. So right now, the way market is responding is that everything that whoever has any skill to do any MLOps is currently using a lot of open source and sort of do-it-yourself approach. Because there is no one size fit all. There's no general solution. Even though Amazon and other companies like Microsoft are building some of the pipelines for MLOps, it's not really developed and it's not really solving all the problems. MLOps has to be applied to each domain. It's very problem specific. So again, there's no solution that unifies everything. And open source is the next best thing. People are sort of building open source communities and they're using each other's code, and that's growing and thriving. But for those people that don't know how to use code and don't have the ML skills and MLOps skills, some companies are building unified platforms. Again, it's very early stages, so these platforms cannot really fulfill a lot of needs, but it's one sort of a way to, in a very low code or maybe even no code environment, allow data scientists and people that work these models to sort of import and push these models through production. Again, it's very early stages, but this is sort of what I see next 1 to 3 and then 4 to 5 years. I just want to give a quick summary. This is really just a short keynote talk, and I'd like to take any questions if there are. The summary of this whole thing is that the most important points for me is that software as a service and AI infused services will be key to competitive advantage. And it's very hard to see this from this point because a lot of companies, and I'm owner of one company, outsourcing company that has experienced a lot of growth and success. So, our business model as is great, but there's always the danger of sitting on your success and enjoying your success and not looking ahead, because things can change very quickly, especially in technology space. Big companies can really fall off the cliff very quickly. So I see this will happen at some point. We're already seeing some transformations in terms of larger companies looking to buy smaller companies, and smaller companies looking to sort of develop new ideas and services to become competitive, because we're becoming very crowded, not only in the territory of Western Balkans, but we're becoming crowded by other low-cost services from Eastern Europe and also Asia. So competition is just increasing, and war for talent is just increasing. So companies as entities have a very hard time retaining the best people and maintaining profitability and growth. I believe the next really big trend and really big takeaway should be that employer-employee relationship will drastically change, and that has to be taken into account when deciding on how to approach hiring process, how to choose people, and how to actually develop the strategy in your company. So if your company has a great vision, and if your leadership behind the company is behind the vision, and it's really transparent, and if your company is built on integrity, and people trust the vision and trust the leadership because they say what they do and they do what they say, I believe that's the best way to continue to attract the best people. And because right now engineers, especially middle level or senior engineers, have a lot of options, and they're not looking just for a great payday or a great client to work for, because they already have that in most cases. They're really looking for inspiration and vision and people that can inspire them, give them that vision, opportunities that they otherwise cannot find themselves, because there's a very small distance between somebody working in a company starting their own company. It doesn't take a lot of effort today, especially with remote work. That just got this whole remote work trend that got accelerated during COVID. And I think the last point that I want to emphasize, and I think this is close to end of the keynote, is that many more startups will emerge, and many more investments in these startups will start to come into the country. As Brett Feld, who is a very famous investor and builder of ecosystems, startup ecosystems, said and explained, usually when you start to build ecosystem, you have to really involve everybody. And so I think the message here is, as you build your company, you have to work with the community, not just universities, because you need talent from them, but you also have to give back. You have to give back to the community in a really genuine way. You have to work with local entities, nonprofits, governments, but you also have to start to work with each other. So no company in the region is going to succeed on its own. So I think also one secondary trend that we will see is that companies will start to partner more and work together on very complex projects, pulling resources together to be competitive against maybe some other larger company that could become a competitive threat. So they will start to really open up and just work on more interesting things together and join forces. And lastly, we will see some unicorns. I'm sure of that. We already started seeing that trend in Croatia. We will soon be starting to see that coming from Serbia. There are already some companies that range, but officially we will start to see a lot more in maybe next several years coming out of the region. And I believe, I'm from Bosnia, so I'd also believe that within next 4 to 5 years, we will have a unicorn, at least one in Bosnia, coming out of Bosnia as well. So this is all I have for today. I know it's very short, 20-minute keynote. I will stop here with presentation, and I will take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ned. It was really impressive. I assume you already have seen the one question stated to you at our chat. So would you be so kind to answer it?
Would you please, let me see. Let me see if Ned, do you provide any of your mentioned technologies from Bosnia? Does that mean do we provide technologies in Bosnia itself? I'm not sure that I understand the question.
Well, it can be related in Bosnia or from Bosnia to the outside.
Yes, we do. Actually, we are all based, because we started in Bosnia, all people, our mission is to really do the products and services in Bosnia and export it outside to clients, both in Bosnia and in the region, but also foreign clients in foreign countries. So the concept is really for 387 Labs is to build everything here. And this is what we're doing. And we're already doing that. We also are training, and we have started doing some training programs. We are not publicly announcing yet, but we are doing in parallel to developing technologies. We're also working on different entities, local entities, to train engineers in AI and machine learning. We're also working across borders with other governments. Actually, we started discussions outside Bosnia to sort of also unify work between the governments, and this could be kind of like a glue or one of the elements that can bring maybe different governments together, because they all have common interest of training and expanding access to AI. So that's another thing we're doing in addition to just building services. We're training and enabling more people to come into the field. And a really nice thing about AI is that a lot of people with backgrounds that are not traditionally technology backgrounds can actually come to and join this field. Like, people from economics background, maybe psychology even. I just talked to somebody in that background, that people that can be have these basic skills that allow them to really come into the field, because it's very different than doing software engineering, but it does require a lot of eventually knowledge of software engineering that could be acquired. But again, it also other skills that traditionally software engineers don't necessarily have, which is great because it brings more people together and opens up more opportunities for people with different backgrounds.
Thank you, Ned. Thank you again for participating and cooperating with us on this project. I really hope to see you next year here on stage and to hear more interesting stories coming from 387 Labs and everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adi, and thank you from for the keynote. Appreciate everybody listening. Take care.
Thank you. This was just the start. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thanks. Bye.